Hi, friends. So, I want to share a story about how frustration with my creative process actually became the catalyst for a bunch of new work and a lot of personal healing. So, as a creative person, I can sometimes get really excited when there's an emotional charge behind a piece. And so recently I had a lot of really heightened emotional experiences that sort of reignited my passion for my storytelling because I had taken a break there for a while. And they didn't necessarily ignite it in, I want to say, like in a normal sense. Uh, they kind of scared me into getting back into my practice. Essentially, I felt like if I didn't put my energy into my passions and my projects, then there are other people in the world that will gladly put me to work for them. But that's another piece, and I've kind of started sharing it on this channel. But again, there were pieces that were emotionally charged, and then I started working on those, and then all of a sudden I got to the point where, okay, we're getting a little further removed from that experience. The emotions are kind of dwindling down, things are settling down, and now I'll essentially have to go into my list, like my to-do list, my to write list, to find the next pieces I'm working on. And that didn't feel, I guess that didn't fuel that dopamine rush. So I started to get a little frustrated, knowing damn well that I have literally dozens of drafts. I have hundreds of topics that I can write on that I've been jotting down for years. I have thousands of hours of audio transcriptions of my reflections and my journals. But still, because I didn't have that, excitement around the piece, I did at some point, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken note that, hey, this is something I want to explore. But because there wasn't that excitement in the moment, I started to get a little frustrated. And now I could have easily just wallowed in that frustration and actually had that create a block. But what happened is really profound, and I want to share it with you. And I want to do a lot more content on asking questions, because questions have been a game changer in my life. And that's essentially what I did. I started asking questions. I started asking, okay, why are you feeling frustrated? How long have you been feeling this way? What other areas of your life are you feeling not only frustrated in, but like you're in this pattern, this like seeking this dopamine, and then once you make a little bit of progress and that dopamine or that excitement kind of dwindles down, then you're looking for that rush again, right? And if there isn't that emotional charge behind it, then it's kind of boring and you don't want to work on it. So started asking myself these questions, and actually what happened is I began to dive deeper into myself and realized that there were other places in my life where I found myself. I called it a loop, and I noticed, hey, I'm on a loop, specifically with productivity, with creativity, but also with finances, specifically shopping. I'm a little bit addicted to fabric, and I'm working on it. Okay. And because of the frustration with my storytelling, with my writing, I'm actually starting to make breakthroughs with this shopping addiction I have, simply because I asked questions, right? I asked, where else am I experiencing this sort of frustration in my life, or this sort of loop, this sort of toxic pattern? And the universe answered, right? And so I am just referencing my notes here because I get a little excited when I talk, and I may go off topic. So answering questions is it unlocked not only new writing potential, not only did it get me past that block, but it also helped me do some personal healing. And so that led me to remembering the obstacle is the way. And I believe it's by Ryan Holiday. And I've read some of it and I don't remember all of it, but I do remember that it's funny. I think the one thing I remember about the book is about a general who said that sometimes when you're like in a really tough situation, you don't have the luxury to think of what ifs. You just have to act. But anyway, that's besides the point. The rest of the book is about how the obstacle is the way. And in my case, you just have to push past those blocks. You have to push past those frustrations. And the way that I have found that works is through asking questions. And now, something that's really interesting to note here is that asking these questions took me down this path of learning a little bit more about toxic patterns and cycles and all the different stages of the cycles. And for me, what I thought was the initiation of the cycle actually wasn't. So the beginning of a cycle is actually the trigger point. But what I recognized it as a recurring theme in my life was actually what is called the justification part. And that is essentially the story, the narrative you attach to the behavior to justify it. And I think it's interesting that that's where my mind went, because I'm a natural born storyteller. Whether I'm good or not, that's subjective. But the point is, I fucking tell stories. I tell stories all day. I love telling stories. If I don't tell them, it's like it all bubbles up inside of me. And so it needs to come out. So that's what the fuck I do, okay? So it's interesting that in this whole cycle of things, I would immediately gravitate to the part of the cycle that is the story we tell about, in my case, why I'm addicted to shopping or why I need a certain item, right? And I'm not sure if these two things are related, but I do know that my shopping addiction sometimes keeps me from creating, right? I know we've seen memes out there and we've seen videos about how, oh, if we just had the right keyboard, if we just had the right external monitor, if we just had the Apple Pencil, or what, like there's all these things that we need. If we just had the right clothing, if I could just sit down and I like feel like I'm dressed like the image of the person I imagine myself to be, then I can get some work done, right? So they are related. Not to say I don't go off on tangents. I definitely very much do. But they're related. And so if you're feeling stuck in your creative process, I invite you to ask questions. If you feel like you're on a loop, if it's been 15 years, it may be Pluto and Capricorn, just saying. I know it's a little woo-woo, but that's almost over with. But if it's been longer than 15 years or less than 15 years and you think it's definitely a more personal problem than a planetary problem, ask these questions and see where your mind gravitates. Because not only is there this loop, if you will, this toxic pattern that repeats, there's also this deeper, it's almost like cylindrical. It's not a circle. It's cylindrical because there's this underlying core belief or reasoning as to why this whole cycle is happening in the first place. So yeah, just observe yourself. I know as writers, as storytellers, it's really easy to observe other people and always try to, see what's going on with them, or to only want to do the work that's exciting. But this is exciting. That frustration and me asking those questions and wanting to get out of that frustration led me down a whole path of knowledge that I didn't even know that was there, and learning about human psychology, about toxic patterns, about subconscious motivations, about addictions essentially, and about astrology. And so I encourage you, just ask questions when you're feeling frustrated and keep going on your path. If you allow yourself to be still for too long, if you allow yourself to be idle for too long, they say an idle mind is a devil's playground. And this year I learned firsthand what that really means. And trust me when I say that if you do not put your energy into your own work and you allow yourself to be idle simply because you are frustrated or not excited about your work, somebody will gladly come along and put you to work for them, and not in a good way. Okay? And this isn't to scare you. This is to empower you. You have creative energy in you, and there are people out there that recognize that this creative energy is a resource. Right? They want it. Some people don't have it and they want it. And so if you have it, put it to work for you. Okay? I know I'm getting a little intense here, but that's it. Feel free to comment, talk to me. I've got my website down below too if you want to email me something a little more private. But yeah, thanks for watching and good luck.